Today's headline is The Death of Major Brown. This article originally came from Camargo, Mexico on August 18, 1846, from the editors of the Picayune. It says, I do not recollect having seen any detailed account of the wounding of Major Brown at the bombardment of the fort which now bears his name. I was very much interested the other evening while listening to a description of the sad scene, given by a gentleman who was an eyewitness and whose statement can be relied on as perfectly correct. On the morning of the 6th of May, the fourth day of the bombardment, about daybreak, the gallant commander of the fort took advantage of a short cessation of the enemy's fire to get a little rest, having been constantly on the watch the night before. He remained in his tent about an hour, when he left it and visited the bastion commanded by Captain Miles. Here he found several young officers collected, who were conversing and jocularly remarking on the novelty of their position, having never before heard an enemy's cannon. The major joined in the conversation, but in a short time left them, saying, as he turned away, Young gentlemen, I hope you may live to fight many battles, and as I know you all, I hope you may have an opportunity to do yourselves justice. He left this bastion to visit Captain Lode, and gave that officer orders to fire a certain number of guns at certain intervals, and to produce as great an effect as possible. This was done for a purpose then only known to himself. A few hours afterwards, as the major was again going around the fort, accompanied by his adjutant, Lieutenant Page, a gallant and very efficient young officer, now adjutant of the 7th Infantry, he informed him that the guns which he had ordered Captain Lode to fire was the signal agreed upon between General Taylor and himself, to inform the general that he was closely besieged. He had scarcely finished the sentence when they heard the report of a mortar. At this instant, they were passing between the traverse which runs across the fort and the magazine. They knew not from what direction the shell was coming, but both of them fell down to avoid it. Major Brown reclined against the traverse, and Adjutant Page against the magazine. They were within about 8 feet of each other. As the major was in the act of lying down, his leg was for an instant brought in the same position as if he had been sitting in a chair, or bent nearly to a right angle, the foot resting on the ground. Page was looking at him at that instant, and saw the shell strike him in its descent. It hit him on the knee, and crushed the whole leg downward to the foot, tearing his boot to pieces. The blow threw him partly over, and resting on his hands and one foot, and turning pale from the intensity of the pain, he exclaimed, My God, which as far as I have heard, was the only exclamation of that nature which the brave man made from his fall until his death. The instant young Page saw that his commanding officer was wounded, he sprang to his feet and looked for men to assist in taking him to the hospital. Quartermaster Sergeant Henry was close by and was at the adjutant's side in an instant, and almost every man in sight, some 10 or 12 in number, rushed up immediately. The surgeon was immediately sent for, and the major was instantly conveyed to the hospital tent. As soon as raised from the ground, he grasped his leg just above the knee with both hands and held it firmly compressed until the tourniquets were put on. By this time, he was very faint. Numbers of his men were gathered around to learn the fate of their beloved commander, and seeing them, he said, Go to your work, men. I am but one among you. The officers and men under Major Brown were warmly attached to him, and they never alluded to his name without an expression of deep regret at his fall. In a conversation with Adjutant Page last evening, I referred to the death of his commander. He corroborated the foregoing statement, and in conclusion, made the following impressive remarks. I remained with him as long as my duty would permit, and left his side with deep and heartfelt sorrow that the service of my country had lost, in its defense, a spirit so noble, a man who in his most intense agony thought only of the proud trust confided to him by his commanding general. When I asked, after being informed that his life could not be saved, if he had any requests to make to his friends, any arrangements to make before his death, he very quietly answered, No, my friends, I have made my arrangements. I should have stated that when Lieutenant Page and the men sprang to the side of Major Brown, the shell that had hit him was lying in their midst. They never stopped to see whether it burst or not. Had it exploded, it would have killed nearly all of them. Fortunately, the fuse, after burning a while, failed to ignite the contents of the shell, and the noble fellows were saved. This story came from the great state of Indiana, being reported in the Indiana Journal of September 23rd, 1846. Thank you for joining us today. If you want to continue to uncover all of America's lost and forgotten history, then remember before you leave to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and remember to like and comment below. and we will see you next time on Americana Archives.